Hey everyone in the VC, it's time for more Ringo, so we'll see if the third time's a charm or not. And what I mean by that is that with his 1973 self-titled album, he happened on the idea of let's get everyone together, including the other Beatles and a lot of big names, Billy Preston, Harry Nilsson, other people like that, get them to supply songs for me, get them to play on the album with me, and that worked out really well. Big hit album, and probably his, well, I don't think there's any probably about it, his signature solo album, the one that he's best known for among the just the general public and probably Beatle fans too. So that was a huge success sales wise, critically, and so his next album up, Goodnight Vienna, he figured worked before, let's do it again. Only one Beatle on that one, besides Ringo, was John, but he had a lot of other big names to contribute songs. And then we come to 1976, September 17th, 1976. Rotogravure, Rotogravure, guess is how you say that, came out. And again, same formula. Let's get a bunch of my friends, a little help from my friends, big names. All the former Beatles are on this album again, just like the Ringo album. And you have other people. You've got Eric Clapton, Peter Frampton, Harry Nilsson again, Melissa Manchester, and quite a few others. Klaus Vorman's on here. So the general narrative is that worked really well with the Ringo album, was a big hit, was a good album. Goodnight Vienna was okay, but not as good as the Ringo album. And this one, the third time of trying to do the same formula, was even less so, just not a very good album. That's sort of the critical and the fan thoughts on it. I sort of disagree. I actually like this album more than Goodnight Vienna. Not as good as Ringo, but pretty solid album, and maybe it's one that's in need of a reappraisal. So let's get into the songs. Let's see. So September 17th, 76, this comes out. Certainly sales and chart wise, it didn't do very well. It only got to number 28 in America, and it didn't chart at all in England. So where the two before it had done pretty well chart wise, or very well chart wise, and the 45s had been hits and so forth, this one kind of fell on its face, which is, I think, kind of a shame, because I think it's a pretty good album. The other unfortunate thing about this album is a minor hit, I guess you could call it, but this was probably the last time that he had a hit. Some of his albums have charted since and singles, but he hasn't really had a hit since this album, as a bona fide hit anyway. And this is probably the point where the general public pretty much loses interest in Ringo as a solo artist, or as his current music. Of course, never going to fully lose interest in him because he's a Beatle, but past this point, it's pretty much the die-hard Beatle fans that are paying attention to what Ringo's doing solo wise, and even quite a few of them probably dropped off around about this point. Shame, kind of, because he had some albums that were pretty good after this that didn't get much or any notice, and so there's some good music still to come. It's not all just it don't come easy in the Ringo album, and that's the only Ringo you need. Not in my opinion, anyway. I can understand some people just don't like Ringo's voice, or think his solo stuff is kind of silly or corny. Get that, but I think there's quite a bit to go after this, and we'll get to all that because I'm going to go through all the albums. I guess I've got about 100 more to go after this, but we'll get through all of them bit by bit. First of all, we'll do show you the album. There's the cover, of course, with the magnifying glass. There's the back, which I believe is the door to Apple. I might be wrong on that, with a bunch of Beatle graffiti scrawled on there by fans over the years. And then you've got the gatefold. A lot of pictures in there. There's John and Paul and Linda. There's Peter Frampton's in here somewhere, and I think Eric Clapton and Melissa Manchester. Just a whole bunch of people that play on the album. Ringo, of course, too. Van Dyke Park's in there somewhere. So you got that. You got the the album sleeve with the lyrics. Kind of a good moody picture of Ringo there on that side. On the other side, you just got a bunch of Ringo sort of acting a fool, a little bit goofy on the pictures on that side. Lyrics and who plays on the album and credits and so forth. So let's get into the track listing, I guess. I can't think of anything else to say in general about it. Side 1, first song, A Dose of Rock and Roll. Kind of a nice opening blast to the album, but then it switches gears to sort of a slow maudlin ballad pace for a few seconds, but then it picks up steam again pretty much right away. It's a nice pleasing mix of 50s and 70s, mid 70s sounding rock, a nice marriage of the two styles there. It was released as a single that got to number 26 in the United States. I don't think it charted at all in England. It's got just if you're feeling down, A Dose of Rock and Roll is just the thing that'll pick you up and cheer you up a little bit. It's got a little coda of the song that's coming up next, a little sneak preview toward the end, which is a nice touch. This, I don't know if this would have got radio play. I feel that it could have been a hit because it meshes or sounds stylistically not too far off from the Ringo songs that were hits in the earlier 70s. So if it would have got a little more promotion, a little more radio play, it might have done a little better than 26. But anyway, it's a good start to the album. I'm going to give A Dose of Rock and Roll an 8. Second song is Hey Baby, cover song, which is the old Bruce Chanel song from, I believe, 1962, which was a #1 hit. That was recorded in Fort Worth, where I live, so that's pretty cool. And Delbert McClinton plays the harmonica on the song, which is said to have influenced Lennon, because he played harmonica on a lot of the early Beatles songs. He was already playing harmonica by the time this song came out, but apparently Lennon was a big fan of this song, and the harmonica sound in particular is what I've heard. The original from 1962 is the better version than the Ringo version is. The Ringo version is kind of a pointless, he doesn't really add anything to it, and his take on it is just okay at best, but it's an okay song, and so I'm going to give it a 6. I'm not sure why he included this, whether he didn't have anything else as far as new written material. But it's also in the mid-70s. There was sort of a rash of 70s remakes of earlier songs from the 50s and early 60s, The Locomotion and so forth, which became a big hit around 73, 74, and some other bands that did cover versions of old 50s and early 60s songs. So maybe he was just sort of playing into that trend there. Third song is Pure Gold, which was written by Paul. It's a nice sort of middle-of-the-road country-ish tinged ballad. Sounds good. Ringo's in good voice. He's in good voice through most of this album. Good voice for Ringo again, as I'm always saying in these reviews. We're not talking John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson, vocals. We're talking Ringo, but he's in good voice. Pure Gold is a nice bouncy little song. I'm going to give it a 7. So we go to the fourth song on side 1, which is Crying, which is written by Ringo and Vinnie Poncia. This is like the Bukus of Blues. This Ringo back in country mode, sort of a Hank Williams thing. Sad song, nice guitar, bit of I don't know if that's slide guitar or pedal steel toward the end of the song. I don't know, it's a couple who were in love and now that's all over and this is the end of the relationship. I'm thinking maybe this is about Maureen. I don't know, I don't remember exactly when they broke up, but I'm thinking it was somewhere around this time, so it might be about her. And it's sad in that he's saying that we could have made it, but there's no point in talking about that now because it's all over, and so it's a bit sad, but that's what country songs are, I guess. So very nice song. I like it a lot, and I'm going to give it a 9. And we end side 1 with "You Don't Know Me," which I failed to write down who wrote that. It is David Jordan. Not sure who he is, but it's another good song. It's a breezy, laid back, sort of mid tempo with a bit of orchestration on it, with some strings on it. It's just sort of a breezy, summery song. Sort of reminds me of I don't know, flying on an airplane and looking out the window at the world below while it's playing type song. Might be again about Marine. I'm not sure, but I like it. It's a good song, good end to side 1. I'm going to give it a 9, and I'm going to set him over there for a second. He'll be right back up. So we go to side 2, "Cooking in the Kitchen of Love," which was the John Lennon contribution on this album. John plays piano on the song. Just sort of a let's have fun, let's have a party, let's get in a good mood sort of song. Wants to be an upbeat, but it's kind of just a lukewarm musically at first, though it does pick up toward the second half. Ringo does really good vocally and gets into it. Musically, it's just sort of okay throughout the song, but they sort of cancel each other out, and I'm going to give it a 7.6 for "Cooking in the Kitchen of Love." "I'll Still Love You" is the second song on side 2. This is the George Harrison contribution. George does not play or sing on the album. Paul and Linda sing backing vocals on their Pure Gold contribution. John piano on his contribution. George was off making 33 1/3 and wasn't able to make it to the recording session, so he doesn't show up other than he just supplied a song to Ringo. An old song that George had written back around 69 or 70 that he, I think, it changed names several times. He had it in mind for several people to record it: Cilla Black, Ronnie Spector, some others. Shirley Bassey, I think, was considered at one point. But by 1976, it was just something that George had around, and Ringo needed a song, so that's what he sent to him. Sounds sort of fittingly something that George could have done. Could have been on All Things Must Pass, could have even been on Material World. It's sort of a big production, big statement song. For some reason, George was unhappy with Ringo's recording and actually sued him. I'm not sure exactly what he was unhappy about. The suit was settled out of court, so I don't know what the ultimate outcome there was. But I think it's a shame because I think Ringo does a fine job on it, again, in good voice. This is a song that would have fit in on the radio in 1976, in my opinion. Could have been a single, could have been a hit. I'll give it an 8. I'm not sure what George's problem was with it, but I think Ringo does a pretty good job, and I think it's a good song. Might have been a song that George should have included on All Things Must Pass or one of those albums. So number 3 song is written by the Yardbirds' third best guitarist, Eric Clapton. It's called This Be Called a Song. Has a great bass line. Klaus Vormann plays bass on it. The guitar by Clapton is just okay, but probably better than anything he did in the 70s, because he was probably one of the most dull famous guitarists, in my opinion. But it's alright. The song goes on a bit too long. It's a sort of a bouncy song, but it overstays its welcome a bit. I'll give it a 6.8. It's not so bad. Las Brisas was written by Starr, and I think Poncia is the 4th song. Trite lyrics, but a catchy song. It's a mariachi band that Ringo found. I've heard either in Los Angeles or down in Mexico, either way, that play on the record there. And I think Ringo plays maracas or something. Good voice again. Nice to see him experimenting, stretching out of his comfort zone a little bit into another style of music. Again, I think this could have been a hit on maybe country music or sort of adult pop stations back in the 70s. I'm going to give it an 8. It's kind of catchy. It's kind of nice. Sounds like you're sitting in a Mexican restaurant, but it's a good song. Fifth song, Lady Gay by Ringo and Poncia. Just sort of pleasantly bops along. This song does. There's not too much to it, but it's a nice little song. It sort of, if you got the album on, it's good background music. It's not anything spectacular, but it's a good enough song. I'll give that a 7. And the album ends with a strange thing called Spooky Weirdness, which is just a lot of, I don't know if Ringo's just cutting up and having fun or if he's trying to do something experimental. It's sort of a strange mix of Revolution Number 9, Ummagumma, Pink Floyd's album, strange things like that. Or maybe it's just Ringo trying to do a Halloween sound effects album like those records we used to get back in the 70s at, Mott's and stuff that had the sound effects. It's sort of that sort of feel to it. He's having fun. And then at the end of it, and it's short, I think it's only, I don't know if it's even a minute long, that track. At the end, he says, and that's how the album ends, and starts laughing, and then it goes into this sort of bass sound that just descends down, down, down. And I don't know, most people are going to think it's just a wasted space on the album. I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's a pretty cool way to end the album personally, but I can totally understand that most people just think it's just a little bit of nonsense tagged on there. So yeah, I'm going to give this overall an 8. I think, like I said, not as good as Ringo, 73 album, but I do like it better than Goodnight Vienna, which I think has good bits here and there, but overall is a little downbeat and just an okay album. So, and this would, like I said, be the last time that Ringo album made any kind of real splash in the general public, unfortunately. So that's it for Rotogravure, and we'll be back with his next album in time. Have a good one.